Throughout all of Pokemon, no Pokemon have been quite so beloved as the Eeveelutions, colloquially referred to as the Eeveelutions. As a massive Pokemon fan myself, I also fall into this category. The Eeveelutions have been fan favorites since day one of Pokemon, with countless amounts of merchandise, toys, cards, and spin-off games dedicated to them. And today, for as sacrilegious as this may be, I'm going to be counting down these adorable fox cats from my least favorite to my most favorite. And to get this out of the way first, I love every single one of the Eeveelutions. I have no hatred, ill will, or serious dislike for any of them. So please consider this more of a ranking video on which ones I like the most, rather than which ones are good and which ones are bad. So, without further ado, let us begin ranking the top 8 Eeveelutions. Generation 1 of Pokemon, as I've said many times before, was not where I started. And though I do have a negative bias of sorts to some of the Pokemon in said generation, even the ones I don't truly love, I can still find a lot of liking for them. And the sad part is, and I know this will upset many of my subscribers and fans alike, but I'm going to be putting Jolteon as my least favorite Eeveelution. Now my reasoning for this is partly due to lack of exposure, but most of it is due to, unfortunately, its design. I'm not a big fan of character designs with long, sharp points all over their body, which basically is Jolteon in a nutshell. The only other sort of bad thing I could say about it is that I'm not a fan of pure electric-type Pokemon, as they have very limited uses and almost never have any sort of defense against ground-type Pokemon, especially now in Generation 9 with the removal of Hidden Power. Overall, however, I do still like Jolteon. It's just that if I had to pick something to be at the bottom, it sadly had to be Jolteon. My feelings of my number 8 pick spill over a bit into my number 7, and honestly, perhaps Leafeon should be number 8, but there's a few small reasons I put it just above Jolteon. One being my nostalgia for Generation 4, and finding out that there was another Eeveelution in that gen was really exciting for me. Secondly, is its old method of evolution. Prior to Generation 8, the only way to evolve Eevee into Leafeon was to take it to a forest area in a respective games, for example Eterna Forest in Gen 4, and level it up next to a mossy rock in order to evolve your Eevee. I really like this sort of unique aspect to its evolution, and the fact that I had to travel back to the forest once I had an Eevee to evolve it made it much more involved than Jolteon, who you would just slap a Thunderstone on it once you're good to go. Plus, since it wasn't an elemental stone, I could evolve as many Eevees as I wanted without having to search for hours for a stone to evolve it that way. Now, of course, Generation 8, the concept was removed, and now you can just slap a Leaf Stone on your Eevee and call it a day. But I'll always love its original evolution method just the same. And lastly, Leafeon overall had a better moveset and stat spread to follow through with many of my battle tactics back in the day, and its body has also much smoother and less jaggy spikes than Jolteon does. Aesthetic preferences, I guess, but I hope I explained it properly at least. Now, along with that other Generation 4 Eeveelution, we have Glaceon. Glaceon has the same sort of concept as Leafeon does, having it evolve from Eevee in a special location in each generation, like in Gen 4 where you take it to an icy rock north of Route 217. But the reason I put Glaceon above Leafeon is on part that I like the ice type more than grass types, and another part that I like its stat spread over Leafeon's. 130 special attack and 110 defense is nothing to scoff at. It's actually one of the more bulky ice types, having one of the highest defense stats in this typing for the game. It has the same special attack stat as Espeon as well, while having the same defense as Umbreon. That means it can survive some pretty big physical attacks and dish out plenty of special damage, even without investment. That is, if it wasn't for the Ice type, the worst defensive type in the game, having only 1 resistance and 4 weaknesses. Add on to it its rather shallow move pool, which thankfully in Generation 9 was expanded to give it access to Mud Shot to deal with Steel, Fire, and Rock types, and very situational abilities in the form of Snow Cloak to increase its evasion, and Ice Body to give it a slight increase in health when during the snowstorm or hail in previous generations to Generation 9, and overall you just have a useless Ice type that's the worst out of all the Eeveelutions in competitive play outside of Flareon. But I think it's super cute, much cuter than Leafeon or Jolteon, and that's basically all I need to like it more than the other two. In Generation 2, several Pokemon from Gen 1 were given new evolutions. Gloom into Blossom, Scyther into Scizor, Onix into Steelix, and of course Eevee into Umbreon and Espeon. Deciding between these two was pretty hard. My first main series battle mechanic Pokemon game was Pokemon Colosseum after all, and you're given an Espeon and Umbreon from the get-go as your main Pokemon. But to make a selfish choice, I'd have to say I like Espeon just a little bit less. In Pokemon Colosseum, Espeon is certainly a better offensive threat due to its much higher special and speed, and it's pretty frail, and since Colosseum is a doubles-only game, Espeon can, and basically always does, get double targeted by your opponents. Plus, it's absolutely useless against most of the game, honestly. Only having Psychic moves as any real damage dealers, since it doesn't start with Bite, and the only other coverage it gets is in the form of Iron Tail and Shadow Ball, both of which work off of its much lower base 65 physical attack stat. Granted, Espeon does get much better in subsequent generations, adding moves like Dazzling Gleam, a special version of Shadow Ball and Grass Knot to its move pool, and it is now considered one of the best evolutions around thanks to its ability, Magic Bounce. But my sadly sour start seeing this silky smooth Espeon started a slippery slope that Espeon couldn't seem to save itself from. Overall, Espeon is a great Pokemon, but between it and Umbreon, it kinda gets overshadowed. Plus, its shiny is, well, just plain ugly, honestly. Now, it should come as no surprise that after talking about Espeon, the next evolution on the list would be Umbreon. Umbreon is the evolution that actually took the longest for me to really like. It used to be my least favorite, even below Jolteon, due to its stats and move pool being geared to almost the polar opposite of my playstyle, known as the slow status tank. Over the years, however, those massive defenses and rather decent typing gave it much more use for me when I was in dire need of a bulky Pokemon. Umbreon has the distinction of being one of the only purely defensive evolutions, and also one of the most defensive-oriented Dark types in the whole game. Most other Dark types are geared towards speed or brutal offense, not Umbreon though. Its offensive move pool is sadly pitiful, but you're not using this thing for that anyway. With 110 defense, 95 HP, and a whopping 130 in special defense, which is the second highest special defense stat of any Dark type, Umbreon can take a hell of a beating before going down. Add onto that a decent support move pool with Wish, Protect, and Toxic, Heal Bell, Baton Pass, Substitute, and much more, and you've got a surprisingly versatile Dark tank that can serve well in many games. I've even used it in some pretty big offensive teams which lack the defensive utility support to support themselves without Umbreon's help. So after several years of playing with this cute little Dark Fox, Umbreon sits comfortably at number 4. My top 3 evolutions have been dancing around like crazy for years now. This is sort of a common trend for me when it comes to Pokemon I really like. I find it difficult sometimes to pick the one I like the most, but in the case of the evolutions, it's especially difficult. However, at the moment, my third favorite of the evolutions would have to be Flareon. Flareon is often considered to be the absolute worst of the evolutions due to its historic lack of good moves and poorly distributed stats. However, the main complaint I've heard about it from other people, mainly being its stats, is actually why I love it. With a base 130 attack and one of the highest of any fire types, and 95 special attack, plus an okay move pool on both sides of the spectrum, Flareon makes a pretty damn decent mixed attacker, which is my favorite playstyle. Give it a moveset of Superpower, Shadow Ball, Flamethrower, and Iron Tail, or Trailblaze to replace Superpower, and this little beastie can seriously fuck up the opponent's day. Now granted, this is not a move pool you want to bring to a serious match, as unless you have some premier team support, it won't be helping out much with anything due to Flareon's terrible physical bulk and minimal speed. But if you want, you can also go with a gut set with Flare Blitz or Temper Flare, Iron Tail Facade, and Superpower or Bite. Or you can sub Iron Tail for Protect to ensure that the Toxic Orb, which is sadly mandatory for this set, seeing as it being a fire type it can't be burned, is activated. I've run several different sets with Flareon for decent success. However, the one I refuse to run is the same damn set Smogon has been shoving down my throat since Gen 4. Toxic, Wish, Protect, and Lava Plume with a fucking calm nature. How about no? I hate this set more than any other Pokemon set in history of the damn series. It just completely squanders Flareon's other traits. It makes it basically useless. Definitely not what I'd consider ideal for such a cute, fluffy, and fiery little fox. Overall though, I love Flareon, and everyone who says it's the worst can never take away my love for it. Vaporeon is damn near one of the best water types I've ever used in my entire time playing Pokemon games. Its amazing bulk and great special stats lend it to being a powerful wall that hits back. Basically combining the defensive powers of Umbreon with the offensive punch of Jolteon, Vaporeon sits at number 2 because out of all the evolutions, it's the one I've used the most. During my very first time playing Pokemon XE Yellow Darkness, the Eevee I got was a female with a quiet nature. This was back before I knew anything about natures and didn't have my rule of needing only female Pokemon, but damn did I not regret using her. She consistently served my team well, all the way into the Colosseum, helping me win 3 of the 7 major battles in that mode. Vaporeon's design is also one of my favorites of any Pokemon. Its mermaid-like appearance combined with the fox and cat-like features create just an adorable combination that makes me want a real-life Vaporeon plushie. Its great move pool also lends it stand out against Eeveelutions, with strong Water Stab and Hydro Pump combined with Ice Beam for coverage and even Shadow Ball for Ghost or Psychic types. Then add on its great support move pool that all the Eeveelutions share, make it very difficult to take down. It's also, in my opinion, the best user of the most common Wish Protect set out of all the Eeveelutions, since it has the bulk to survive even some strong super effective hits long enough to set up without worrying too much about being taken out in one hit. Overall, Vapo is one of my faves. She defined my first playthrough of my favorite Pokemon game, and honestly, everything else about her just makes her a fan favorite for myself and many others. However, it's pretty obvious that there's still one Eeveelution I like more than Vaporeon. Now, my number one of the Eeveelutions is probably the most popular fairy type introduced in X and Y, Sylveon. Now, the reasons I picked Sylveon are myriad and varied, so let's start with her stats. 95 HP is great, 65 in attack and defense isn't the best, but it's fine, and her 60 speed is oddly enough makes her the slowest of the Eeveelutions, but her massive 130 special defense and respectable 110 special attack makes up for the lack of speed and defensive bulk by a lot. Sylveon also by far has one of the best hidden abilities in the game, Pixelate. This little ability turns normal moves into fairy-type moves, and subsequently boosts their power to 30% in X and Y, which would sadly nerf to 20% in subsequent games. But even so, this gives her signature Calm Mind set a massive damage dealer, seeing only 3 types resist Fairy, and none are immune. Add on to that the best coverage set of all the Eeveelutions, getting access to typical moves like Shadow Ball, Wish, and Protect, but also having good coverage in Psyshock, and of course in Gen 8 got Mystical Fire, which allows Sylveon to handle her biggest weaknesses in Steel types rather easily. Plus, the coup de grace of her appeal is her appearance. Sylveon is by far the prettiest and cutest of all the Eeveelutions, with her beautiful bows and ribbons and those giant blue eyes, or pink when she's shiny. So she can hit like a truck, is one of the most popular fairy types in the game, has a great support move pool, great coverage to show up her powerful boosted Hyper Voices and Hyper Beams, and is super cute to boot. I'd say that wraps this countdown up nicely. Sylveon is by far my favorite Eeveelution, and until they release a Dragon type one, she probably always will be. Okay, so that was a fun little video to write for. The Eeveelutions are some of my favorite Pokemon in all the games, so it was nice to see a whole video talking about just them. I know that many people will disagree with my placements of my faves, especially Jolteon's placement, but honestly, picking your favorite Eeveelution is kind of like picking your favorite child. You love them all, it's just sometimes you love one or two more than the rest. But anyways, guys and girls, thanks for watching this video all the way to the end. Please feel free to tell me what your favorite Eeveelutions were in the comment section down below, and try a drinking game where you take a shot every time I say Eeveelution. Just please be responsible if you do so. But that's about all I got, so please leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this in the future. This has been ZDS, making it fun one video at a time, and I will see you guys in the next one.